welcome to the first episode of the brand new and improved Evil Inkarnate. I'm Benjamin Osgood. I will be your host for this series of episodes that somehow started, and happy to be here. Thank you for the likes, the follows, and I know there's not a lot of us, but hey, I'm making this map anyway, so I may as well have some fun with it, and you know, it's a great hobby, and it keeps me on a schedule. A little bit about me: I am an author, I'm retired, and I'll be using the map that I'm making anyway for the fantasy world that I am using in the series of books. And again, this channel is not to sell books. This is simply to have fun, make a map, help you in your tabletop role-playing games, your fantasy world building experience, playing with the map making software known as Inkarnate, which, you know, sometimes might feel a little evil, but I personally just love this program. It is so fantastic. I have had an absolute joy using this stuff, and I really just, I wanted to make this because I get so frustrated when I see people just give up on using it, and I don't want you guys to give up on this. I want you guys to enjoy it. I want you guys to use it, and I don't want to see this program die. You can make some absolutely amazing stuff with this. This is just an example of one of the first maps I made of the continent of Aurea, and it was just a very rough map. And my goal over the past 5 months has been make an extremely detailed world map of the entirety of the world where the continent of Aurea exists for my series. So I'm probably going to not be done with this map until next year. With that in mind, we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to talk about scale, we're going to talk about mountains, we're going to even talk about volcanoes, we're going to play with an island. Let's get some fun, let's hop right into it. Today, we're looking at a little place on the west coast of Aurea, southwest of Marith, called the Scorched Isles. Now, this is a dangerously volcanic place. On here, you'll see some guidelines where some blue and red lines are. Blue is where I know volcanic flow is going to be. If you see where the darker shading is, that is where the shoreline has come up and reached a zenith. So it's really these brighter areas that we want to pay attention to. So I would really recommend using a guideline system at first to get an idea of where you want these mountains to go, especially if you're near a shoreline, because it's these areas that are going to help us determine where our mountains are going to go, where the draw line, as in where we're going to draw, is going to be going, and what method or what path we're going to follow. So we're going to place a volcano right here in the center of this island. Something I want to try and keep in mind, and we're touching a little bit on the volcanoes, mostly we're talking about mountains. When it comes to putting this volcano in, first thing I want to kind of look at is the scale of the volcano. Since this is going to be a focal object, it is not really going to adhere to the scale of the rest of the map. This is like a Mount Doom. This is a standalone volcano. It is a unique object. That means you can make this thing as big or as small as you want. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to play around. This is at 100 scale. This is the default 100 scale that the program wants it to be. And then I'm just going to play around. We're going to see just what the generic flat number value scales are on this volcano. And what I have in the background are some very rough templates that I put up in where some cities, some towns, some villages are going to be. And you can kind of see where I have already determined how big of a footprint that these icons cover for where population centers can cover in these land areas. So if you hold this 100 scale volcano over these, it's even bigger than this island. So I already know that a 100 scale volcano, according to Inkarnate, is definitely not to scale with how big this world map is. And that's completely fine, because I'm not using the stamp scale for this map. I'm using my population centers as the base scale for this map. This is the world map. So I'm just going to go ahead and place this stamp here, and I'm going to drag down to make, since it's a focal point object, I'm just going to place it down. Oop, that was by lines. Yeah, when you have guidelines, go ahead and lock them, just so you can mess them around. And I'm going to use the guidelines, blue meaning potential lava flow points, and red is representing where I know my high points in the mountain range are. And I'm going to drag this little volcano around and place it where I am looking at elevation, where the lighter areas on this map, I know where the high, darker is the low, because that's near the shoreline. And I want to focus it where I know the lava and the blast are actually going to be directed out towards the water. So it gives the impression that the side of the volcano on the opposite side blew out, and all that lava flows following that blue arrow. And of course, you have a couple different volcanoes out here too. I could use this lower one, so it looks like maybe the top blew out. And you even have a little smaller one here, but it doesn't give you that dramatic feel. This is an island that you should, when you're approaching this on the ship, this volcano should stand above. It should be a sentinel over the seas. The clouds of ash and smoke should fill the horizon, everlasting. It should be a beacon of darkness. Now, I like using the small mountains to kind of use them as a guideline for where the flow of my mountain range is going to go. A lot of people like to use the giant one or the regular size one. I'm a little different, I guess. And then I'll scatter the medium mountain ranges. I'm not very big on drawing a line. I think it's great in some respects, like very large areas. But if you're wanting to take the time and really put a little detail into it, go ahead and do some singulars. And I know it seems a little tedious, but taking the time and going one by one on your mountains and focusing on your maps in small areas, going back and forth, changing the sizes on your mountains, big, small, medium, and really feeling out where your mountain ranges are going, looking at the shading, paying attention to how mountain ranges form, where your fault lines are going to be, how scale is relative to your mountains, and following geological patterns using real reference maps. Some great areas to look at. I use Italy, Germany, and the Rocky Mountains. Those are my big three references. If I'm looking at mountain ranges, those are the big three references I'm going to use. Switzerland is also really good if you want to use some very wide ones. Now I'm going to go back in here. I'm just going to play around. I'm going to move the stamps around because a big influence in me for mountains in my personal life is going to be Afghanistan, sadly. And when I was going through those mountains, they're not very close together. They look close together, but there are places where when you're walking through those mountains, you will walk up and then they'll flatten out and then you have open spaces, and then next thing you know, after a couple miles, there's another mountain and it's a little bigger or smaller. So you want to potentially even just give openings. You want to make it so it's not too inhospitable. Give some avenues of approach. Let your terrain flow with the idea that maybe mountains crumble over time. There are ways for people to move. Delete some of the stamps. You don't want to overcrowd. You're going to just give the impression being filled. So you can even take some of this space out, move smaller mountains so you can have the mountains roll up, and then as it comes further south, it gets lower. We're going to move some of these down real quick and give a big bulge. Bulge. I'm going to move some of these smaller ones. Where's the small one? There it is. I'm going to move some of these smaller ones, make a really, like a flattened peak line, like a ridge line almost with mountains. Maybe mountain goats live up here. I'm going to put another one up here. Maybe there's a hidden village on this island. I haven't done a lot of the story. Well, I've done some of the story, but I'm not going to talk about it. There's something on this island. I'm not talking about it. I know exactly what's on this island. But, I hope I know what's on this island. I'm the damn author. Anywho, I'm going to put some more of these little mountains here. Just so you can, if you needed to, you can traverse between them and weave your way. Like a snack, a sneaky snack. Alright, we're gonna put a couple more in there, and we're just gonna eyeball, get rid of some of the ones that are taking up a little too much. Thin the herd a little bit. Because like I said, we're not looking to fill the entirety of it. Because you could fill this entire island with mountains and say, oh yeah, look, this island is filled with mountains. And it just looks packed. Or you can take some of these stamps out and you have the speckled, the impression of a rocky terrain. I'm a very big fan personally when you're making an aesthetic of impressionism. You want to give the feeling of roughness, of danger. You don't want to fill the entirety of this landscape with jaggedness. You want to give some hope or some semblance that they could escape, but they really can't. That flat open area in between the mountains may be safe haven, but really it's just a dinner bowl. But I said too much. And we'll just spread those so you can have that rolling feeling where it comes up and down like a jagged wave of granite and stone all the way south. We'll take some of that out, move this. I think that'll be nice, because you can even take some of these mountains and make it look like they're combined. So you can take two small mountains and hide them behind it so it looks like another medium. Take that small mountain, put it there, and you can play around with it. Definitely play with these. You can even rescale some of these mountains and, you know, make the stamps do what you want. Just because you move these stamps down to a 20 scale, 30 scale, whatever, you can make them whatever size you like. They don't necessarily have to be uniform. There seems to be this concept of, well, I use my stamps at this scale. That's great and all, but what we're really looking for is the feeling, the scale, the aesthetic. So uniformity in line, yes, is important, but we're also looking for, you know, the feeling of the world. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take these mountains, I'm going to shrink them down, and I'm going to make them hug this coastline a little bit on this edge. So it looks like the mountains rise up on this side of the coast like a row of teeth, like the jaw of some massive beast rising up. I'm going to take that. It's a tiny little hint of a bite. I'm going to curve this so it looks like this mountain actually, let's see, you can take this small mountain under the regular size and lengthen that edge so it looks like it actually curves down and it's bigger than it really is. And at the end of the day, you now have a whole new mountain range on your island. And I've even added a couple more mountains on the islands surrounding the main island, because even smaller islands, you may have a couple of mountains here and there, and make sure you give your mountains some friends. They don't like to be lonely, they're like trees, okay? They don't like to be lonely. Give them at least a couple of hills or some other mountains, otherwise they're gonna get depresso espresso. Then that's never good. Everybody needs a friend. Once you have that basis, if you are doing something like an island of a part of a bigger world or portions of a continent, something you can do if you're doing big maps and you need to do regions, you can go into the top left menu and you can resize your map. And you simply do this by clicking that menu button, go down to resize, draw a box around it, and you can now export that as a brand new map, and you can rename it whatever you like. And now you have a whole new map based on everything you just drew. This is extremely handy for if you're going to work on a massive project, like unfortunately I'm in the middle of now 5 months just for the map. You can work on a world map, and then as you are finishing parts of the world, you export that into a regional map, and now you can add the finer details. And that is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to get a little bonus in here. We're going to do an example of taking something you've done in a world map, and we're going to put that into a region, and we're going to use the mountains that we've done to kind of show you what happens when you've taken that and now you're going to go further into the scale and you've blown up this regional area that you've done. This is great for if you're giving your players the regional map of an island that they've only ever seen on a world map, or a portion of a town map that maybe they've only seen the bigger part, or it marked on a world map or a town map, something like that. This is amazing because you've already done a bulk of the work of the surrounding area. So you zoom in, and now you have this whole new map with everything you've already done. Most of the work of the terrain, at the very least, has been done. But you'll see it looks a little blobby, and we can do some of the refinement here. And per the usual, you have all your different tools. You have your normal shovel tool, you have your star shovel tool, you can do your rough, your smooth, but as always, I always prefer to just go right back to that low scale, smooth, little pen tool under the shovel icon and just do little squiggles with no rhyme or reason. You can make it smaller, you can make it bigger, just go in there, draw little pasta noodles, do little blobs, smooth it back out, get a general idea of that shoreline going. You want to eliminate anything that looks like a generalized pen mark, because you just blew up everything that was on that old scale. And once you start coming in on that shoreline and you get the general idea of it, you go right back in, add, subtract, the same process that I did on a previous video. You can go back, you can look at that video. I go into a little more detail when I was doing the river video. I'll most likely be doing another video even more in depth about this, small things about how shoreline works and making continents and things like that, but that's going to be a whole other thing. But always take the time to look for anything that looks unnatural. When you can see recognizable shapes, you can 100% catch it with your human eye. Then go ahead. I would enlarge the shape first, just so you have a little bit more meat to work with, and then go right back in with that subtract tool and just don't necessarily go in there with a plan. When you purposefully go in on a landmass with a plan, the human touch will come through. This is one of those few times that, as an artist, because congratulations, if you don't consider yourself an artist, once you start doing things like this, you are experiencing your artisanal awakening. So let me be the first to congratulate you and call you an artist. As soon as you started using this, you were an artist. It doesn't matter if you're going to a gallery. you are unlocking your creative potential right here. Because after this, I would not be surprised if a lot of people started picking up paintbrushes or taking up pottery or sculpting. There's something about watching the creative process explode in front of you. Seeing something that you take the time to successfully bring to life, and at the end of the day, it starts to approach a satisfying result that will give you that dopamine, that rush, that feeling of satisfaction that I personally find incomparable. So if I come back out here and we can easily compare between the two, the parts that I touched and the parts I didn't, just by using this one little tool, this tiny little low scale brush, you can clearly see the difference in between how the different tools were working. And of course, since this is a regional map, you can come down here into the filters. You have all these wonderful little tools. You can change the aesthetics of everything. You can make it look like it's on canvas. You can burn the edges. You can stain it. You can make anything possible. You can give your players that experience of, I know this is a different map because it looks completely different than my world map. It looks like torn and worn. It looks like it was ripped and shredded. You can take it into Photoshop and you can mask and erase and tear. You can print it off and pour coffee on it. You can literally take a lighter to this thing and burn it. Do anything you want. As a tabletop dungeon master, as a immersive game player, I would encourage you to just think outside the box. Bring that extra element to make your games a bit of a step more. Because if you take the time as an organizer of your games and bring your stories to life with physical maps or digital maps, and bring a visual aesthetic with not just how the world is organized and how you're verbally describing it, but just visually. And even like if you stain it with coffee, you get an earthy tone and a smell, and when they're holding it in their hands, there is an earthy grittiness to it, and when they put that in their hands, you will have players that have never played this game before in their life. Their eyes will light up. And even as a dungeon master that I have run these games for over a decade, when I see a new player get that spark in their eyes for the first time, every single time that I see that, I still get that rush because I know I've done something right. But that is it. Thank you for watching. If you like it, give it the thumbs up. I really appreciate it. I'm going to keep making these videos, keep working on the map, keep answering your questions. And if you got a question, something that's frustrating you, something you want to see, this is the place to ask. This is a For You channel. This is a demand channel. So if anyone asks a question, it doesn't matter if it's one person, 3 people, a handful, or the entire Reddit community. I don't care. If it is a planned episode that was already gonna get answered, the only thing that's gonna change is when it gets moved up in the schedule. That's really it. If it was not a planned episode, I got a special little title block for you, so don't worry about it. We'll do some shoutouts, we'll do some other things, we'll get some randomness going. We'll do town maps, city maps, points of interest, we'll do a whole bunch of crazy nutty things. We'll do some battle maps. We'll do anything that you guys need, as long as it's on Inkarnate. We'll even do things I've got planned in the future that are not necessarily maps, because Inkarnate can do stuff other than maps too. It's some really crazy, nutty stuff, because I just want you guys to understand that Inkarnate is great, Inkarnate is wonderful, and I really enjoy it. I just want to showcase it. But you guys are absolutely amazing. You can get me on Reddit at Benjamin Osgood _author. You can get me here. Thank you so much for listening and watching. I will see you guys again. Until then, keep playing and take care.
If you want to see more of the world as you follow along in this series, consider purchasing the author's book, Hero of Oria, available in print and digital format.
Looking for an ending, draw the night and await the morning sun. Together our path leads round the bend. Untraveled roads rarely leave you guessing. Search the skies, your stars are shining. Find your way and see a new horizon. Journeys only end after beginning. I know you can fly over stains of blackened mountains, hills, and trees. Take an inky swim through rivers, lakes, and streams. Don't care where you're going, how long you'll be away. I will be right here, and here I'll stay.